need to check out All Elite Pod.
We are the Lucha Brothers, and you listen All Elite Podcast. You know why?
Hey, this is Cole Cabana. Check out the All Elite Podcast. All Elite.
This is Sammy Guevara, the best ever. And you, yes, you, need to go check out All Elite Podcast.
What's up, man? It's the Machinist Wolverine, Mr. GMSI himself, a man with a huge F in arms, Brian Cage. You're watching the All Elite Podcast. Who better?
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andrew, and I'm joined by my boy, Big Match AJ. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing good, man. I'm stressed out for reasons I told you that I'm not going to share on the podcast, but I'm trying to keep it cool.
That's cool, man. I'm glad you're doing all right. You're handling the stress a little well. And, dude, I think that's what the best part about AEW is for a lot of people, especially in a time like this, at this time of the year where it's been a funky year, too, so things just aren't great for everyone. I can relate to that as well. It's just been a hard time of the year. So on Wednesdays, when I'm tuned into Dynamite, I'm really excited and I'm really having a good time, and it really kind of helps me get away from a lot of that. And then on Thursdays, we get to do this podcast, and it kind of helps me continue on that with just sort of avoiding the stress. So I'm right there with you, man, but I'm glad we're here. We're back on another Thursday to discuss AEW. We always have a lot of fun with it. I think that it's a lot of fun. We have some interesting topics in terms of news to discuss before we get into Dynamite. We have to congratulate the Rhodes, Brandy and Cody Rhodes introducing a young Rhodes. If you ask our boy Joseph, he's already calling for Cody too. But we got a young Rhodes in the making, and that's a wonderful thing. It's going to change up some stuff probably in storyline purposes, but that's probably for the better as well.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. But definitely, well, you know what? Let's just talk about it real quick, because obviously it was building to Jade Cargill and Brandy Rhodes, but obviously that's not going to be happening now. So I wonder what they're going to do with Shaq.
Yeah, I do wonder that as well. I think that they might try and still get something out of that, but obviously with Brandy being pregnant, it looked like they were going to do some type of matchup with Brandy and Jade, even as close as last week when Brandy had that interaction with Shaq, and now it's not looking that way. And again, I'm not mad that the Jade Cargill thing isn't going to happen with Brandy, and it's probably been a good introduction for Jade, so if they intend on continuing to utilize her, it'll probably work out for them. So
yeah.
I mean, overall, the storyline wasn't necessarily a home run, and I'm not going to act like it was the worst Brandy storyline we've gotten. Brandy's been in some tough positions.
It was good for ratings.
And I think that it was just a good introduction, again, for Jade, and I think that if we had given it more time to flesh out, it probably would have turned out to be a really good storyline. But it just didn't have a ton of time, so it's another one that gets brought off the rails a little bit early. But Brandy having a child, and who knows, they might still figure out a way to work this out, because they did incorporate some other people into this feud as well over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, like Red Velvet kind of made the save. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, so she's easily someone who maybe they just position Red Velvet into that feud. It would be very interesting for her. And I think I'm not sure about her match quality either, so it would be just an interesting situation. But nonetheless, the biggest takeaway, congratulations to the Rhodes family. That's very cool. It's very cool for Cody and interesting for Brandy nonetheless. And she's obviously not a mainstay within the wrestling part of AEW, but I think we'll still see her in like a management role at least for a little while. But it's very, very fun, and as a father myself, I know Cody's going to have a lot of fun with that. So it's cool. Cody's going to be a great dad. He's already a great dog dad. So another interesting topic that I wanted to discuss before we discuss Dynamite, it kind of relates to Dynamite. Jim Ross was calling out some of the AEW stars this week for some bad spots. This led to Brandon Cutler.
Well, not specifically the stars, just kind of overarching the style.
Yeah, very true, very true. Not even necessarily the AEW talent, but the style and the evolution of wrestling as he was referencing it, or lack thereof even. And that kind of got Brandon Cutler in some hot water because he made reference to that. And then Wardlow can't make it to the show. Very interesting situation in and of itself. And Cutler's the one pulled from the match. It makes all the sense in the world to me, but it also kind of showcases that he had a little bit of heat on him for the statements he made.
FTR even tweeted back at him, like, you should listen to people who are older and wise and have been in this business longer than you. So it wouldn't be surprising. But that said, I don't think that's the reason he got cut from the match. I mean, Wardlow couldn't make it. Who else are you going to get rid of? I mean,
really, you really feel that way? I mean, they were, what was it, 3 actual tag teams and then Cutler. So you are right there. You are right there. But it is still just a situation of like, it doesn't look great for Cutler, nonetheless. The whole situation and him being pulled from the match just doesn't look great for Cutler. And I still am a fan of Cutler, and I think that he was just trying to be funny in the being the elite
he's
way.
Just making a joke.
He was trying to be being the elite funny, and it just didn't hit people the right way. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them try and swing that into a joke in and of itself, like make him the joke of the situation, which is probably the best route that they could go with that. But nonetheless, like, I mean, I understand Cutler wanting to respond to it and wanting to try and be funny, but in situations like this, it's kind of better to just let Jim Ross say what he's going to say. There were other mentions coming out, apparently a quote coming out from a talent saying, we get it, but pull us aside and tell us this. Don't go on your podcast and say this. And I could understand that sentiment, but at the same time, it's probably weird for him to just pull you guys aside and talk about it. It's probably much more sensible for him to discuss it on his podcast in the way that he goes about things, because he's had a podcast since before AEW. I'm not sure. I mean, he's always worked with wrestlers, always helped wrestlers, but I'm not sure that Jim Ross was always the one going out of his way to speak to them, or if the wrestlers were going to him and asking for his help. So listen to the podcast and just get some advice through that. I think that responding to it is it's not going to help anybody, but I get what Cutler was trying to do. He was trying to be funny. The last bit of news, Kenny Omega, Tony Khan, a couple other AEW-related faces pulled up on TNA Impact this week. You were tuned into that, AJ. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
I was. Yeah, well, it was just another for the Tony Khan bit. Anyways, it was another paid segment where they were, backhanded compliments left and right to Impact and just straight up disses, and it was great. It was funny. It was hilarious. I fucking love those things. I hope they keep doing them. The Kenny Omega situation was Machine Gun Carl Anderson has been in Kenny's bus, his private bus,
for weeks now, right?
Yeah, for a while, since like Final Resolution, I think before that. So he's on the list, so to speak. So he's always hanging out, and Kenny's always like hyping him up, like, where's the machine gun who won the G1, like, or was a finalist in the G1? Where's that machine gun? Come on, Gunner, you can't let him talk to you that way, and gets him all hyped up and all razzled, and then he goes out and he does his best and usually wins because he's a top star there. But and after what happened, after Kenny did all that and Carl Anderson won his match by cheating, by grabbing the tights, he in the back, Rich Swann confronted Carl Anderson saying, you don't have to win like that, blah, blah, blah. And it got into a big fight. Kenny Omega and Doc Gallows return. Doc Gallows returns. Kenny Omega shows up, and they beat up. Who was it? It was Rich Swann, and it was 2 other guys.
But this is leading to a 6-man, right? Between those 3, the Bullet Club offshoot with Kenny and the club against Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns, right? That's going to be a lot of fun. Impact already has me hooked in on that one just because of.
It was the Machine Guns. It was Sabin and Sully.
So I'm very excited just at the idea of this matchup. I imagine we're going to get a 6-man for them. It's going to be a lot of fun. The one thing I did notice was the ratings were definitely not.
They announced the 6-man, by the way. Don Callis in that moment announced it.
Cool. So I'm excited to tune into that, but I did notice that the rating wasn't so hot for Impact this week. Even on Twitch, it just didn't do as good as the previous week, maybe just due to the.
It still did better than normal.
Oh yeah.
That should be pointed out.
It just still did better than normal, but just the excitement had wore off a little bit. There weren't hundreds of thousands of people necessarily tuned into Impact on cable network, which is my biggest takeaway. I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think when the matchup happens, that's when people are really going to tune in. I think people were tuned in last week to see what was going on, and there was no action. And that's okay, because now they will see highlights of this action that occurred, and we'll start getting into the idea of, oh, wow, there's really a storyline brewing here. And I think people also were expecting an immediate, like, invasion angle, and they didn't get that.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Well, it's tough. It's tough because, like, on their biggest show, and a lot of people are complaining, like, the show that drew the most people, because Kenny had just said, I'm going to Impact, they taped that show a long time ago. So they didn't know they were going to get those numbers. They didn't know exactly when this was going to happen, probably. So they didn't realize that, like, the argument there is that it was also their go home show to a pay-per-view, so it should have been like, here's the storylines, here's the wrestlers anyways. But on that note, they didn't know Kenny Omega was going to be in a bus on a pre-tape segment that they slotted in.
Right.
So it's tough, but especially with the COVID stuff going on. But as we're getting closer and closer to Hard to Kill, I think they're taping stuff as of now, and Kenny's definitely going to be involved. Even the segment last on Impact was a tape segment. They did it in the back, not in the ring.
Right. And that all makes sense. It makes sense you have to fit these tape segments into something that was already filmed, especially with the storyline just coming together now. You don't want spoilers for something like that, obviously. So it all makes sense, and I'm very excited about the Impact thing, but you can tell that the rating just didn't pop as much as it did the previous week. And that might just be a general thing with the holidays coming up, because AEW didn't necessarily have the best rating that it's been having the last couple weeks. This week they did about 800,000 up against NXT's 760,000. So an impressive week for both sides, if you ask me. Again, 1.5 million tuned into wrestling on Wednesdays. AEW still picking up the edge over NXT, and that's been consistent for 90% of AEW's existence, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And with just a more consistent product and a more entertaining product overall, it makes sense. NXT has done the best when they run storyline driven product, and they're capitalizing on the finish of the storyline. Those have been the shows where they've been able to really compete with with AEW. And that's why I appreciate what AEW does, and we're just kind of getting back into the storyline build-up. So I'm not surprised at 800,000. Again, with the holidays and everything coming up, I don't think it's a bad number. Coming off of 2 weeks of 900,000, I could understand a little bit of disappointment. People want to see the consistent rating there from AEW, maybe even some build off of it, but I think this is good. This is still a consistent number. I think pro wrestling in general and the way it is consumed via cable television has changed immensely. And so, I mean, the networks are never going to be upset at this number, especially when they're doing so well in the prime demographic that they're beating out Raw. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I really want to see the demos for this week, because Raw had an all-time low rating. I want to see if because last week they beat Raw in the demos for every hour. The 18 to 49 demo. I want to see if they do that again this week. I haven't looked into it that much.
Yeah, and so that is kind of the biggest takeaway in terms of ratings, but that's where you could say this 800 is a bit of a disappointment, because in order to maintain that beating Raw statement, they were at 900,000. You know what I mean? Those were the high end weeks. In order to maintain that, you're going to need to maintain the high end number, and then we can really get into the exciting conversation of, like you said, they're beating Raw in the prime demographic on a different night, so it's not direct competition, but still beating out the top product that WWE is putting out in that demographic. So it's something to keep note on. I think that this week we'll probably not see that same result because of AEW's slight downtick in the rating. But again, 800,000 is definitely nothing to be disappointed about. If we get back down to 700,000, I guess. But like, wrestling in general is in a more comfortable place than it was 3-4 months ago, when NXT was getting 500,000 viewers and AEW was getting 650,000. So even from that perspective, wrestling is just much better off right now. And the rating for the shows was solid. It's definitely nothing to be disappointed about. Next week's rating is going to be probably really, I mean, I have no idea, honestly. I don't even know if I want to say horrible, because it's coming directly off of an NBA game. It could be a huge number. Could be the best number they do, just at a really weird time. And that will tell them to consistently just run off of NBA games. So,
but that said, I'm not going to take the number very seriously because of that. Like, if it is low, it's going to be like, well, 10 p.m.
While I agree with you, I'm hesitant to say that with you, because I will take it very seriously if they pull a huge number.
Because that means the NBA really
is beneficial. It'll be a huge deal, a huge lead-in. It'll be, and that, to me, that's what I'm expecting. Honestly, I'm expecting them to probably pull one of their bigger numbers. They just have to have something super exciting to begin the show. And it depends on if it's literally the game finishes one or two interviews and they cut right to AEW, or if the game finishes and then there's a post-show discussion about 30 minutes. That gives a lot of people time to tune out. So it comes down to those two things. Nonetheless, I am curious on what the rating next week will be, but that's going to take a while to get anyway with the holidays and everything. So.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh, well, that's what is to be expected. If you are tuned in with us and listening to us on the podcast, you will know that next week we will be live on Twitter on Tuesday, the 22nd. We're going to do a little recap show discussing next week's Dynamite, just discussing our thoughts on the matches, give a little bit of predictions probably on what we think is going to happen. Then we're going to take the rest of the Christmas season off. We'll be back on the 29th and the 31st. So we're going to start running a couple times a week, pre-Dynamite and post-Dynamite. Tuesday show to talk about what we're expecting, and then Thursday show to talk about what we thought about the show. So just to let everybody know what our plans are, what our schedule is, what we have coming up. But last night we got an exciting episode of Dynamite. Let's go ahead and talk about it, AJ. Let's run through the card, say what we thought about it. They opened the show with the Hardy Party picking up the win over Hangman Page with the Dark Order, and this was one they jumped right into the match. And that's what I love about Dynamite is it's never the same thing. It's something different. It's sometimes we'll jump right into a match. Sometimes we get an interview that makes sense and then gets us right into a match. It's never like an hour-long promo. And if they ever do that, I'll never be upset about it because it's not a week-to-week thing. So I appreciate that the product opens up that way. And I don't
think they've ever opened up with a really long promo. Like they do it at the top of the hour or the main event, but like never at the top of the show. They really try to start you with wrestling.
Yeah, and literally they'll do a 2-minute interview segment, which is very simple and always related to the match that's in the process of starting, and then we get right to the match. And so I really appreciate that. I don't watch a whole lot of Raw, NXT, or SmackDown, so I don't know if they're doing the same thing, but if not, they should be. And
they're not.
Oh, that sucks, man. I honestly, because I watch so much AEW, I feel like that would be the just general how wrestling does it now, but I guess not. Makes sense.
It's the same, kick off the show with the 10-minute, 20-minute promo.
Rough. This match was a lot of fun, though. A lot of fun for a 10-minute match. Hangman working with these guys, Reynolds and Silver, was great. They're dressed up as cowboys. They did a great job. And in the middle of this match, it resonated with me. I'm like, so we have a babyface teaming with a tag team of heels up against a pretty much heel and Matt Hardy teaming with some baby faces in Private Party. I thought it was very interesting dynamic, and it made all the sense in the world because they had built up to it. It didn't take a lot of build either. It just made sense. So good match, a lot of fun. What'd you think?
I'm not going to say the wrong team won. The team that I wanted to win did not.
That means they're doing a great job with this Hangman Dark Order thing. That's all I'm going to say.
Exactly why I said I'm not saying the wrong team won, but I really wanted them to win. I love the Reynolds and Silver and the Dark Order in general and the Hangman bits, the bits on BTE that I watch BTE just for those, and I don't watch anything else.
And it is so entertaining. I don't catch too much BTE, but what I catch of them on Dynamite, it makes me want to catch BTE because they are so funny in what they do. And to the other side, Matt Hardy and the Private Party side, they've done a lot of good on their end that I'm really enjoying what they've done as well. So in storyline, it makes sense for the way that this finish played out. But I do agree with you as a fan. I was bummed. These are the guys I'm cheering for. I want the other side to win. And that means you're creating perfect baby faces. That means you're doing exactly what you need to do. Because I know we're not alone in that either. I've seen a couple other people on social media sort of commenting the same thing. Like, I'm not mad at the booking, but I'm mad at the booking because I just wanted to see my guys win. So
exactly.
After this,
the match was really good, though. I just want to say that the match was great. Everybody was really on point. Like, even Matt Hardy was looking great. John Silver goes without saying that he's a workhorse and did phenomenal in that match. But everybody, Hangman, Reynolds, both Private Party, and even Matt Hardy, which I kind of want to go out on the limb to say, was looking really good. Because Matt Hardy, in his older age, like, kind of sometimes works slower. But I feel like he's been making this slower
transition
style work for him.
I would agree with you that there is definitely a change in style for Matt, and it works. And all of these guys are really great. Private Party sometimes as well have some slip ups in matches and hiccups. This was not evident at all in this week, and that's what you like to see. You like to see that growth and continuation from them. Where sometimes some stuff will go wrong, but 90% of the time when they get out there and work, everything is perfect, and they're really great for it. It was a solid match. I think they did a really great job with the time that they had and everything in terms of that. I couldn't complain. You know what I mean? It was interesting. And the one thing I wanted to note, Mark Quinn has a bit of a new look going for him, and I like that as well. I think that's really impressive.
Oh yeah, so, I liked it too. The red dreads.
Yeah, he's trying something new, and for an already young talent, someone who's been with this company for probably about a year now, it's perfect to see him try something new. And because a lot of guys like him, he is the one in that group who has gotten more praise. I'm not going to say he's the one who's bound to show out or anything. He's gotten a lot more praise
you're totally
on
right.
the internet and stuff. So for him to give it a try and not just be like, well, everything I'm doing is perfect, it's all Isaiah holding us back. He's like, I'm going to try something different and do a different look as well. Looks great for him. I love it. I think it's great, and I like to see Private Party doing great things. So
yeah.
From there, we get the Inner Circle doing an interview with Alex Marvez, just talking about how MJF got an award for the best performance for the Dinner Debonair. Jericho tries to interject and say that it was his idea, but MJF cuts him off, just saying that he did a great job. This was a great little promo with some backhanded stuff between MJF and Jericho, obviously setting stuff up for these guys down the line. What I love about this, what I just can't, like, in the segment even, I was like, yo, MJF is number one. Like, Jericho is number 2 in the Inner Circle, just based upon how they're all standing. And it's obviously not the truth of the group, but the way that it's being projected and the way MJF is carrying himself, he is certainly not a lower member of this group. He is, if anything, like leader A. Like, Jericho is 1, and he is 1A. So, with just that promo, that's what I took from the promo. What'd you think?
Honestly, I don't want to say I didn't take anything from it, because that's not true. What it did is it leaves me really confused as to where the hell they're going to go, and I like that. That's a good thing. I have no idea what MJF is going to do in the Inner Circle. I have no idea how Chris Jericho is going to respond to all this if MJF keeps acting like a smarmy asshole in front of him. I don't know where any of this is going, and I really like that. It makes me really excited to see about where this angle heads. And this is another example of AEW and long-term storytelling, because I feel like this isn't going away soon, and it's going to be a slow burn to something really cool.
And the other cool thing that I just take so much from Jericho segments, and I probably read too deep into them because he says everything means something, so I just read into everything. But the way that MJF is playing up his character that he was when he was best friends with Cody, and you can almost read it on everyone in the Inner Circle's face, like, we know what you're doing. We literally saw you do this a year ago. But they don't have to say that. They don't have, but you could see it on their faces, and you could see the way it's playing out. You're like, this is amazing. And I probably feel like it'll all be where it turns back around on Max, and that's how it should be. That's where the storyline is going to be a lot of fun. But they've done a great job at building it, and it's felt very confusing throughout almost all of it, but it's come together so well that it's just another good storyline. I'm not going to say it's the best storyline AEW's done, but it's a really...
But it has potential to be.
It has potential to be a really good one. I don't know that it'll be the best, because I have seen really, really good ones they've done over the last year. But this one, and because this one came together in such a confusing way, I think it's going to be good. Maybe not great, but that's fine. Like, that's fine. It's just another good storyline. It's and one that is at the perfect time for Max, where he wasn't going to become champion. They didn't rush him into the first title win. Like, when you are a part of it, you feel like things might not be you feel like they might not be making the right choices. But every time you get a month down the road, you look back on it and you're like, it was great. Like, MJF not winning the title was great. Like, so perfect. But at the time, we were like, it's now or never. Well, maybe not now or never, but it should be now. And it's okay that it wasn't then, because they have ideas planned out. And that's where AEW does everything so great. So,
yeah, and I should rescind that. I don't know that it's going to be the greatest storyline they told. I just mean to say that given the right amount of time and the right amount of care and the right amount of attention to the storyline, it has potential to be one of the great ones.
No doubt, absolutely. And with two guys like MJF and Jericho, who have been a part of storylines that are really great in themselves with similar type of stories, I'm curious to see how they pull this one off. But it's going to be great. After this, they show the promo for Cody and Brandy announcing that they're expecting a child in 2021. We already discussed this. Once again, congratulations to the Rhodes. But this leads into Cody Rhodes' match against Angelico. If you ever thought Angelico was going to beat Cody after that announcement, it definitely wasn't going to happen. He's not about to beat him after the announcement of his baby. Outside of that, though, Angelico had a great match with Cody, and Cody gave a lot to Angelico in this one, where I never really bought that Angelico was going to win, but I did appreciate that he got a lot of offense in. It wasn't like a 9-minute beatdown, and he looked good at times.
Oh, yeah. I think this match means a lot more than people might think, because I was listening to the Unrestricted podcast, and they were talking about how when Cody does things like this, like have a match with the guy, like when he had, because it was John Silver and Alex Reynolds, and they had a match with him and I think Dustin. And whenever Cody goes out of his way to wrestle with a younger star, it's usually because he likes seeing talent grow, and he likes building talent, and he sees something in them. And so I think that means a lot, that if Cody wants a one-on-one with Angelico, that it's like, okay, that means he really does see something in Angelico, which is great news, because Angelico, like you said, is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, and he has a look about him that I think can really be very popular as well. They have a lot of talent that just have unique, cool looks that really would resonate with a younger audience, that really resonate with that 18 to 34 or whatever they're aiming for. It resonates with them because they're the same. It's the same type of people who are like, yes, he's teamed with Jack Evans, but Angelico is a little bit younger, so you just feel the branching off of that, and just other characters they have on the roster as well. It's really well thought out. So great match, solid match for Angelico. Looks really good. After that, we have Taz come out. He congratulates Cody on his new child. They just cut another solid promo between Taz and Starks before they can really get down there and start laying out Cody. Sting comes out. He winks at Cody, and that's it. It was very brief. I'm not totally.
He looked at Darby too.
Yeah, he did. He had a stare down with Darby too. But my biggest thing is, like, why is Team Taz just standing there? Why don't they just beat him up?
Yeah, I know. Will Hobbs wanted to too. That was interesting. Will Hobbs was the only one who wasn't afraid to beat up Sting.
Huck was holding him back. He was like, "Nah, man."
I guess the reasoning is the bat. Like, he'll beat your head in with a bat.
But there's like
so
four
don't
of you.
Go near
There's
him.
like 4 of you.
I know.
Get your own bat. No, I get it though. It's
saying.
the aura of Sting. He's the icon Sting. So I'm not burying it. I just they could have tried and gotten hit with the bat, but I also appreciate them not, because that buries the talent. So in that that whole aspect, I get it. It was just a short segment, though. I don't think there's a whole lot we can take away from this until they start breaking it down and really, why is Sting saving Cody every time after the promo he cut last week? Does he have an issue with Taz then? That's my only thought at this point. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I'm assuming it's an issue with Taz, but I really don't know, and that's kind of cool that I don't know what's going on with Sting, because that's kind of the point of Sting. But I would like to get a little more. I don't want to just see the Sting high and by every week.
Yeah, no doubt. But at the same time, what more can you do with Sting? Because he's not here to have like 30-minute classics or anything. He might have 2 matches where he's probably a tag team partner in one and doesn't take a whole lot of bumps in the other one. So I don't expect much from him, but I would love to see anything else, because when it gets to 3 weeks in a row of Sting comes out, maybe says something, and then leaves, and he hasn't even hit anybody with the bat yet, it does become a little bit like, okay, we've seen this 3 weeks in a row now, and it's just kind of like if you eat ice cream one day, it's great. If you eat ice cream 3 days in a row, it kind of loses its taste because it hasn't changed. If on the third day you're throwing whipped cream on it and some cherries and stuff, okay, it adds a little bit more spice to it. So throw some whipped cream on Sting and we'll be good. But I get it. I get utilizing him 100%. But
oh yeah, you definitely want to be able to say Sting's on the show just to reel in viewers.
And it is obviously building to something, but utilizing it too much can be a thing. So we'll see what happens next week. I would expect to see Sting on the late night episode, though. I don't know. That might just be the little kid in me. But I'm like, if it's past 10, of course Sting's going to be there. He's the late night, dark, edgy guy. But after this, we get Alex Marvez doing another interview. There were a lot of interviews and promos on this show, which is interesting because the matches that they had were still really lengthy and good as well. So they did a good job at that this week. The promo was pretty simple. Just Miro talking about how he was fined $75,000 last week.
7,500.
$7,500. He was fined some money. He was fined a little bit of money from AEW. Orange Cassidy doesn't care. Next week's the holidays, and then on Dynamite they're gonna have a huge wedding date announcement. So just some time for Miro to talk. I thought it was hilarious that Miro was trending on Twitter because his name is also a word in Spanish. So when wrestling fans start talking about Miro and then Spanish people are just utilizing the word, or Spanish-speaking people, I should say, are just utilizing the word Miro, it makes him trend. It doesn't take much. So
that's great.
He was trending. I was like, what did he do that was so crazy? What did I miss? And I was like, oh, it's just a word in another language. That makes 100% sense.
That's fantastic.
Regular promo, though. Nothing to take away from it, right?
Yeah, I mean the wedding date, but we'll get more into that when the best friends
wedding has
respond.
almost taken so long that I've kind of forgotten about it. Like in most cases with weddings and wrestling, we don't have a whole 6 months of them being engaged, and it makes sense because that's realistic. Like you don't just get engaged and get married 2 weeks later. But this build to this wedding has been intense for professional wrestling standards. I will give it that.
Yeah.
Much. We got another promo, this one from Eddie Kingston, so, I mean, of course, you're not really going to complain about that. He cuts a promo talking about how he's basically run everyone off that he's been feuding with lately, but then Archer comes out, right? It was Archer, right? Yes. Yeah,
he was just saying, like, Pac's gone, and then he just mentioned the name Lance Archer, and Lance Archer comes out.
Yeah, he starts trying to lay everybody out, but the numbers get to him, and we have Penta, Phoenix, and Pac come out to make the save. But Pac and Archer were a little bit pissy with each other because neither one got to destroy Eddie Kingston. But they were able to resolve this. This wasn't a huge point of contention, but
it's a good little thing to throw in there that like they're not that like Lance Archer and the Death Triangle are still two separate entities.
And that I think is the biggest thing of doing that. The most important part of doing that is that you're right. They're two separate entities, and this is the best way at keeping it that way. So I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Really solid, just simple segment. So
yeah, I love this.
Back to Promo City, we have Dasha with Dustin Rhodes talking about the offer we got from the Dark Order last week. He says that 7 was a bad idea however many years ago, and it was a bad idea last week too. Next week, they will fall one by one, and next week he's going to take on Evil Uno. So Evil Uno versus Dustin set for next week. That's all this was.
Yep, which should be fun.
Sure. It won't be bad. I will give you that. It won't be bad, but I don't know if I've ever really been like Evil Uno versus Dustin. That's the one. We get the Inner Circle taking on the Best Friends, Top Flight, and Varsity Blondes in AEW's first 6-on-6 tag team match. A match that went about 15 minutes. Solid length here because I get that they wanted to showcase Top Flight and Varsity Blondes and really get them a chance to shine. And it wasn't. On paper, this looks like a squash. This looks like Inner Circle beating 4 guys in the Best Friends in short order. They instead got time to shine. Varsity Blondes got a little time to shine. Top Flight got time to shine. Mm-hmm. After the match, Top Flight clearing the ring of MJF and Chris Jericho, which essentially is setting up a match between these guys down the line. So,
yeah. Really good match. Really fun. I'm kind of glad it wasn't a 7-on-7 because I feel like it was already pretty chaotic, and adding 2 more people in there would have just made it more so. But that said, it wasn't bad chaotic. Like, it was manageable and everything flowed. But I really enjoyed this match. I thought Top Flight looked great, and I am excited. It made me excited for an MJF Jericho versus Top Flight match.
Yeah, I will say that I agree with that as well, and I think you're right. Top Flight looked great, and them looking good in this match made me excited for the matchup that they built up after the match. So well done job there at just elevating them prior to a match. Because if you announce that match before, I'm a little bit confused by it, but in seeing them perform well and then clear the ring afterwards, it makes all the sense in the world. I agree. The fact that it's a 6-on-6 was so much better. It has nothing to do with Cutler even. It's just the 3 tag teams being just 3 tag teams in one big tag team. Just makes more sense. Cutler is in a tag team, so that is even a bigger reason why I'm confused why he was...
Is he? With who?
Well, doesn't he team with, what's his name? The librarian, don't they team with each other?
Peter Avalon and him had a big blowout feud.
Oh wow, they're not buds anymore. All right, well, okay. No. So I guess he makes sense as a solo guy in that. But it doesn't hurt him to have not been in this match either, honestly. I don't think he would have been the one to get a whole lot of shine. He probably would have been the guy to get beat on most of the match. So it doesn't hurt him. Hopefully everything's good with Wardlow, though, because him randomly missing this show is a bit like, well, just hopefully his family's good. That's all.
Yeah. Jake Hager hit the F10 because Wardlow wasn't there. I don't know if that was a shot on Wardlow or not.
Definitely.
It looked shitty,
That's
too.
a shot for sure, bro. There's no way. I'm excited to hear them reference that, because if that isn't something, I would be shocked, because there's no way he just randomly throws that move into his repertoire, you know?
Yeah, he hit the F10 and MJF pinned him off of it. But I was like, damn, I appreciate Wardlow so much more now, because I didn't realize how shitty that move could look until Jake Hager did it.
Yeah, I agree. So, good stuff there. We get another interview segment, this one with Thunder Rosa, who cut off Alex Marvez, talks about how Britt Baker said that she doesn't belong in AEW, gets to promoing a little bit more before Britt Baker and Reba intervene. At first, it's just Reba before Britt attacks, and Britt, Reba's pouring water on Thunder Rosa's face, which then gets the face paint all rubbed into her face. It was hilarious. It was a good segment, a really, really good segment for this feud.
It really was.
Like, it has helped this feud build up. This might, if you ask me, this is the best women's feud in AEW, and it involves neither of the two women's championships that they have at their disposal, which is overall a good thing for both AEW and NWA in the long run, but still, something to point out.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly, this is absolutely the best women's feud, because Abaddon Kushida is fine. The match will be good, but the build to it has been weird. It's been a little weird, like her being scared of Abaddon and everything, and all the spooky stuff. It's a little odd, but this has just been straightforward wrestling. Like, you don't belong here. Yes, I do. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. And then Thunder Rosa is going to get her revenge when she gets her hands on Britt Baker. I think this is simple and well done.
Yep, 100%. Very simple, very much by the books of professional wrestling. And again, makes two women look great that represent two different companies, and neither one is necessarily vying for a title. But when they are, they will make 100% sense. So, great job there. We get SCU taking on the Acclaimed picking up the victory in about 8.5 minutes. This was a really solid match, a really good showcase for the Acclaimed to get a...
I forgot to write down the rap battle.
They definitely had a rap battle before the match that I hated, but I totally understand the point of it. 100%.
I wanted to ask you in the chat, is this cringe?
It was so cringe. It was very cringe, but that's the idea. I think that, first of all, and what hurt me the most was SCU, and it was Kaz who cut his part. No, it was Dan. Wait, was it Kaz?
No, it was
They're
Kaz.
both old men. It's hard to tell the difference at this point. But Kaz, he's cutting this promo and rapping, and it was so horrible and just never seemed to end. I was like, how long? How many lines do you have? I feel like you have more than the Acclaim did. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and the match itself was good. The Acclaim looked great, and it's a good situation they have building here with these guys, who I was completely unfamiliar with, might even have not been a tag team prior to AEW, and now they're just doing really great stuff together. So,
yeah, Tony Khan actually put them together. He called them both in and said he wants them to be a tag team, and ever since then they've been a tag team, which is really cool because, like you said, I have not seen much of them on Dark, but what I'm seeing on Dynamite, fucking great.
And
like,
for them to have put this
natural
match on Dynamite is as perfect as I could have asked for, because leading into the match, it might have even been prior to the show, I had messaged you and been like, yo, these dudes are 7-1. How? I was like, these guys have won 7 matches on Dark. We've never even seen it. And for them to, and I was kind of bitter because they hadn't won a match on Dynamite yet. This was that match. I understand that. It probably could have come a week or two ago, and I'm if these guys have had a match on Dynamite and won, then excuse me for forgetting, but I do not recall these guys wrestling on Dynamite.
They had a promo.
But to have gotten that big of a run on Dark and to get ranked off of just Dark matches, if I was Sean Spears, I would be pissed. I would be like, how do these guys get ranked off of 7 wins on Dark and I can't get anything, and I've won like 55 times on Dark this year? Like, this is shenanigans.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the Acclaim looked great. I'm excited for that. They had, after the match, Max of the Acclaimed freestyles on the Young Bucks, talking about how they're challenging them for the championships, and they let them know that next week they will have a title match on Dynamite, because that is set in stone. So
That's cool, man. The Acclaimed have, like, just from this match, so I shouldn't say this overall, but from this match, and I'm assuming they performed well in Dark, otherwise they wouldn't be having this match. They seem like a natural tag team for people who weren't a tag team prior. Like, they really have great chemistry together.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it just adds to the depth of the tag team division and kind of just really, really emphasizes AEW's tag team division to a point where it's so good. It's not just the regular, like, we've signed the Young Bucks and LAX and every other good tag team that was available. Not only have we done that, we made Kenny Omega and Hangman Page a tag team, and they're the best tag team in the world for like 6 months.
Yeah.
We've put together this random tag team called The Acclaim that no one has ever heard of, literally, because we made them. And they're already very impressive and turning heads. And we've signed a bunch of young kids that are really great tag teams as well. So the only team that I feel bad for is the Jurassic Express because they just haven't gotten as much, but we'll talk about them.
Well,
in a
I
little
think
bit.
they're going to get into a program with FTR and everything. So, but anyways, also another tag team, just to shout them out, that AEW put together, the Varsity Blondes, fantastic. They performed great tonight,
100%,
or last night.
100%. So that's just another testament to that division of it's not just signing all the great teams off the street because they could bring in the Motor City Machine Guns and the club and a couple other teams that are really talented and will just add to the division and add to the potential matchups. But they've also built a great division as well. So, and they further did that by having Top Flight announce that they have that match with Jericho and MJF next week via promo. And the thing that I took away from this promo was that one of them is very good at talking. Like he's not. It wasn't the best promo I've ever heard, but for like a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old, I want to say how old they are. The 21-year-old cut a very serviceable promo. His brother very much sounded like a 19-year-old kid trying to cut a promo, and that's fine because that's literally what he is. But
are they brothers? I didn't know.
I'm pretty sure that they either brothers or they've been tag teaming for a long time. So I might be off there, but dude, every tag team in professional wrestling is brothers. Look at Edge and Christian. So. But they are a great team nonetheless, and they're so young. I want to say they're brothers, dude, because of how close they are in age. That one of them was 19, one of them was 21. But again, could be off. Nonetheless, the age there, the fact that they cut such great promos and everything, it's nowhere but up for those guys. So
for sure.
Continuing on the tag team talk, we had Big Swole and Serena Deeb team up to take on Ivelisse and Diamante. They pick up the win in about 9.5 minutes. At the conclusion of this match, Nyla Rose hits the ring and attacks. They get a triple team going on Big Swole and Serena Deeb before Red Velvet is the one to come out with the chair and make the save. So continuing on from sort of the situation going on with Jade Cargill, I don't know if Jade will just now no longer be involved in this feud or if this was just how they continue the feud right now and try to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as this match goes, I like Ivelisse a lot. I like Serena Deeb a lot. Diamante's serviceable. She's fine, and I think she's getting better. Big Swole really is not ready to be on national TV, in my opinion. Like, she's just not there yet, which is not a shot at her. I think she could be a potential really great women's wrestler in the division, and they've been building her up. But I feel like she needs to have more time on Dark and not so much time on TNT.
Yeah, I would agree. Overall, I think that I would agree. I think that, and it probably goes for a lot of the women's division, and that's why we end up sounding like hypocrites when we say that we want to see more women focused on Dynamite, when a lot of them probably would just serve us better from getting more in on Dark. And I get it, and it's tough because Swole is one of the more prominent members of the women's division. So to throw her on Dark, you would almost need her to compete twice or to appear twice a week. And maybe that's the best bet. Maybe that's the best bet. And having her do a couple quick matches on Dark and then rack them up on Dynamite, where they might struggle there is they count rankings and stuff like that. So you don't want to just spam her getting matches and then winning. But I would agree that the whole women's division in general, it's tough here, because I don't know how long Swole has been training. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years. Compared to Deeb, Ivelisse, and Diamante, who have all been at this for a long time, I'm pretty sure. It's tough. You kind of stick out. When there's 3 really talented, they're pretty smooth, talented women, and then Big Swole, who just doesn't have as much experience, it kind of stands out. So.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see where they go with this because I know that Red Velvet also is a bit inexperienced. So.
Yeah, that's true.
But the women's division,
Red Velvet coming out for the save was interesting, and we talked about it briefly. But I do feel like she's probably going to get that Brandy role, which I don't know if it's the best idea, but I'll see where it goes.
yeah, well, and it makes sense because she was Brandy's protege for the time being. So.
Mm-hmm.
We get the best friends in the back. They say that it'll never be over between them and Santana and Ortiz. But moving on, Miro said he'd announce the wedding date at the Holiday Bash, and what a coincidence because they will be there too. So just continuing their feud with Miro, perfect feud for them. And I love that they have referenced the Santana and Ortiz thing, and they referenced it a lot in that 6-on-6 match as well. And,
yeah, they did.
And what a great thing to just be cognizant of the fact that you have a great feud on your hands, and the only way to make it almost historic is to treat it as such every time these guys get in the ring with each other. So
Mm-hmm.
we then get a hype video for the Jurassic Express, and they announce that next week it'll be the Jurassic Express versus Dark Orders 5 and 10. And FTR come out on commentary, ask why they're featuring Jurassic Express. They feel like they're being overlooked for the Jurassic Express, so you are right. Continuing the FTR versus Jurassic Express feud for sure.
Yeah, I like that. I really like them coming out in between, like how they normally announce the matches in succession and kind of breaking it up by being like, no. And I really like FTR. I really like FTR versus Jurassic Express. I think it's going to be great. I think this is a great feud for both of them. It should elevate Jurassic Express, even if they don't get the win over them.
Mm-hmm. And it keeps FTR busy with a quality team that the fans are definitely, they notice. They remember these guys, so they've worked with them plenty of times. So it works out. It's a good situation for them. They then run down the card for next week, which we will go over on Tuesday's show. So catch us on the 22nd. We'll talk about and give our predictions for next week's show. They also announced the Holiday Bash and New Year's Smash. Nights 1 and 2 will be the names and themes for the upcoming weeks for AEW the next 3 weeks. Next week's Dynamite airs right after the basketball game. So if you tune into TNT at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and you're like, what is going on? This is not the wrestling I was expecting. Well, Jim Cornette.
Then you should check your guide normal millennial.
Check your guide and recognize that Dynamite will be on directly after the game. So it's a situation we're going to have to get used to with the NBA, and the only thing AEW can hope for is that it provides a solid lead-in and they can boost off of that. And if it happens enough times, I think it will probably be a positive overall. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the themed shows we have for the next 3 weeks because I do feel like they're putting an emphasis on them, despite the fact that I wouldn't be mad at them for being like these are throwaway recap shows for the holidays. But I imagine these will all be taped so people have time to spend time with their family and then get to do a cool show that airs next week. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, and I think we're getting a title match on one of these big shows. Well, we'll get to that in a second, but I mean, they're definitely going to try to put some emphasis on them. I think.
Yeah, they put a tag team title match on next week's show, and yeah, we'll talk about the other title match they announced for the show on the 30th. So we get a matchup between Kenny Omega and Joey Janela in the main event. I was so excited to see Joey in the main event. I was a little scared at how much time there was before the show was over. I was thinking he was going to have to job out Kenny Omega in 1 minute, and I was like, damn, Joey, I don't know how you're going to do it. Turns out Kenny picks up the win in 6 minutes on this one. And solid showing for Janela. It was a hardcore match. They didn't have a ton of time, which is probably for the better because the longer you give Joey Janela to kill himself, the more he's going to destroy his body, especially in this type of matchup. So it was a fine match, solid. During the match, Don Callis does commentary utilizing a live mic because prior to the match, he tries to take the commentary spot from Tony Schiavone, and Tony Schiavone told him to kick rocks. So it ended up screwing over everyone because Callis then does commentary with a live mic. It was a lot of fun. And at one point, Kenny also does live commentary. So they did a great gimmick here with that. And the match was good.
The only time I've seen that before was when he was Kevin Owens now, in ROH. He would beat up his opponents, and Steve Corino and him would do commentary.
I remember Jericho doing his own commentary during a match, or at least the Royal Rumble at one point, I think.
Okay. You're right.
He's done it, but to have done it like this, I thought was really entertaining because there was a point for it. Callis tried to steal the spot on commentary. The commentators already know what happened last time they let him on commentary, so they're like, screw that. And so it made a lot of sense through even the storyline purpose of doing it. So it was great. Post-match, Don Callis is cutting another promos talking about how all the questions have been answered. Apparently not, as Pac and the Death Triangle come out. Pac cuts a promo. He's not here to get himself a match. He's here to get Rey Fenix a match, which is fucking sweet if you ask me. Because in storyline purpose, it makes sense. Phoenix never lost in the tournament. It sets up a perfect match for Kenny Omega. So, December 30th, Phoenix versus Omega for the championship. This is a match that it's been in AAA a couple of times now. I think that's how Kenny Omega got the AAA Mega title.
At least once.
And so it's a great match. It's going to be a ton of fun. I was excited for it when it was going to be a tournament match. Now it's a title match. I don't have any faith that Phoenix is going to win, but it's a great defense for Kenny. And I talk about this a lot with AEW championship reigns because I know that never or almost never will it be the first or second defense where someone's going to drop the belt. You know what I mean? They take prestige in the titles, so we get it out of the way, and we get it out of the way in a great match that will be a lot of fun. That I'm not going to buy into Phoenix winning, but I'll still have a lot of fun watching it. That's where the main event for tonight was a lot of fun because it wasn't for the title. It was instead for a match for the title the following week, which I think they could have done a lot with this here and having Phoenix win on the 30th and then the next week get the title match. But I get not redoing the same story twice. So instead you just have Phoenix automatically get the title shot, which from Tony Khan's perspective, again, makes sense. You want the title off of Kenny because he's being a fuckboy over in TNA Impact. So,
yeah, no, definitely, it makes perfect sense, especially with Tony Khan being like, "Fuck this guy," because he even mentioned in the promo in TNA, like, "I'm not slapping an injunction on Kenny just because I believe he is a great wrestler and this is giving us promotion on AEW." But otherwise, I would.
And I like that they go the extra mile with all of that as well. Those promos have been a lot of fun, but they also serve a purpose in the grand scheme of things, which is important as well. AEW tends to do stuff that always serves a purpose. So a great show, honestly. This week's Dynamite was a lot of fun. It's not like I tweeted out that why is every episode of Dynamite the best episode of Dynamite because I stole that from my guy Andy Nemedy on Twitter. And someone was like, well, it's not. And I was like, I get it. It's not the best episode. That's not really what I mean. But every episode is a lot of fun. Every episode I have no trouble forgetting the trouble that I'm dealing with for 2 hours to just hang out and watch some wrestling and enjoy some good storyline building and stuff like that. So in terms of that, it's great. The great matches we end up getting on the pay-per-views and stuff like that. So Dynamite is always fun. Every episode of Dynamite is always the best episode of Dynamite because they're just fun and take me out of the bullshit for a while, especially in the middle of this pandemic. So it was a great time tuned into Dynamite. It was a great time talking about Dynamite this week. AJ, let the people know where they can find you so we can get out of here.
You can follow me on Twitter at BigMatchAJ, and you can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitC.
And as always, you can find the podcast on Facebook at Facebook.com/AllElitePod. We're on YouTube at YouTube.com/AllElitePodcast. If you're watching us there, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. You can catch us on Instagram at AllElitePod. We are on Twitter at AllElitePodcast. You can find me on Twitter at UpstateAndrew or on Instagram at AndrewKazir. Thank you guys for continuing to support the podcast. Tune in, share, all that great stuff. Until next week, the 22nd Tuesday.